You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Welcome to the Big Show and Podcast. We certainly appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for being here. As always, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, and linkedin.com/Chris Voss. If you haven't subscribed to the LinkedIn newsletter, that thing is killing it. It grows massively every day. Two new plugs that we're shivving, one of those two. Someone's getting stabbed with a shill. Anyway, check them out. There's AI podcast with Chris Voss. It's so new I can't even remember what it's called. And you can go to AIChrisVoss.com, or you can just Google it, whatever, it's up there. There's also the leadership, Chris Voss Leadership podcast that's available now. You can check that out as well. Both those are silos or verticals that are copies of what guests that appear on the Chris Voss Show. So you'll still see them on the Chris Voss Show, but you'll also see stuff over on those if you're interested in AI, which is artificial intelligence, for those of you not quite up to par with everything that's going on. Today we have an amazing author on the show. Hannah Matthews is on the show with us today. She's the author of the latest book that just barely came out. Holy crap, yesterday. May 2nd. 2023. Are we almost halfway through the year? Stop it. Make it stop. Anyway, pick up her book wherever fine books are sold. It's called You or Someone You Love, Reflections from an Abortion Doula. We're going to talk about her book. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Chris.
There you go. And Hannah, give us a .com where people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Yeah, so right now the best place is hannahmatthews.me, and that has links to all my work, all my writing. If folks need abortion support resources or education resources, they'll be there.
There you go. And so what motivated you on to write this book, Hannah?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of different jobs in my life. I still have a million jobs. I've worked at public libraries. I've worked I'm a mom. I've worked in childcare, preschool teacher. I love kids. I love families. And I just love being in the community. And one job I started a few years ago was working in a reproductive healthcare clinic. And it provides abortion care, but also, birth control, cancer screenings, all kinds of other types of healthcare that folks in my community, especially who don't have health insurance or don't have, too much disposable income, can access, in a place that's really free from judgment, free from shame. And we can help them, stay healthy and thriving and build their families the way they want to, and have, healthy pregnancies, healthy lives. And so, I really noticed that so many people are having abortions, whether that's, because their pregnancy can't survive, it isn't healthy for them, whether it's because, they can't afford to give birth and raise a kid, so many reasons. And they're all across the spectrum, right? They vote for Trump, they vote for Bernie Sanders, they don't vote. We have helped so many folks have abortions who would tell you they're pro-life, they're Catholic, they don't believe in abortion, but really it's all of us. And most people who have abortions are mothers or parents, they already have kids. And just I was like, if this is happening all around us all the time, it's people in our families, it's our college roommates, our friends, our girlfriends, whatever. We should all be equipped, no matter what our political views are, to help the people we love, stay safe and healthy and okay, and make sure they're getting what they need. And so, my thing is, I just want everyone to know, we're all broke, we're all busy, we're all tired. We don't have the energy to keep up with all these crazy laws that are passing and, all the news that's so stressful, but we can kind of get in there where we can and, give someone $20 or point someone to a fund they can use, or an organization that will support them. If we just kind of all get a baseline of education, then we can support, our daughters, our sisters, our friends, when they need us. And that's really, that's best for families. Like abortion helps communities thrive. It helps families thrive. And it's just something that is a normal and necessary part of reproductive health care, just like, prenatal care, miscarriage management, all of it.
So you've done a lot of different work in this field. You're based up in Portland, Maine,
Yep.
and you've been published in the New York Times, Elle magazine, Esquire, Time, Jezebel, McSweeney's, Teen Vogue, and other publications. So you've done a lot of great work. Hey, let's lay a foundation. What is a doula? Because I never knew what this term until I came across your book pitch. And so establish what a doula is.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for asking. So a doula comes from, the word comes from an ancient Greek word that originally meant like female servant, female slave. So these would be women who were around, if a woman was giving birth or having a miscarriage or like going through something, these women would be around her, helping her get what she needed, helping the doctor, helping her spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of it. So a lot of folks don't like to use that term anymore, but I still do, just because it's kind of easier for folks to understand if they've heard of birth doulas, like they kind of automatically understand what I do. But a doula is someone who gives someone non-medical support. So we're not healthcare providers, we're not doctors, we're not nurses, but we can give someone, emotional, spiritual, physical, financial support. So basically just fill in those gaps that like a community and a village would fill in for someone.
There you go. And you guys are different than a midwife because a midwife does the medical and then you guys do the emotional support. And to me, this is very needed. Across my life, I've had a lot of experiences between girlfriends and gal pals. I had a gal pal call me one time. She was having a miscarriage. It was very far along, actually, but she still could do it at home. But it was still so emotionally traumatizing. And I remember her calling me, and I as a man, masculine man, I have no way to process it. Yeah. And we're very different men because we can't, we solve problems, and we're not very good when it comes, when women come to us with their emotional thing and being able to do it. And they need, really women need that community, that female community of support. And a lot of them don't have that. I was watching a female speaker a while ago, and she was talking about one of the things that women used to have back in the day is they used to have a community of women that they would go spend time with, and they'll, a lot of this goes back to caveman times, and they would, the men are out hunting and chasing, whatever we chase, go kill and hunt and bring it back. Women would have this community where they would do stuff. I mean, even when I grew up, there was, I know this sounds old timey, but it kind of is because I'm 50. But even in the Mormon community that I grew up in, women would have these quilting things, and they would get together and quilt. And it really wasn't about the quilting so much; it was about the community. And this speaker I was watching recently, she said one of the problems that women have nowadays is they don't have really a community. Everyone's kind of isolated. We're all kind of isolated when you really think about it now. We're all in our little homes. We don't even talk to our neighbors. Like when I grew up, we talked to our neighbors, went to dinner with them, got sugar from them, salt and stuff like that. But now we're just like, hey, the people across the street, scary. Yeah,
for sure. And that's something that kind of, especially now that, it's like across gender lines, like I see patients all the time who like have sexually transmitted infections or like don't know what's going on with their bodies because they have no one to talk to. It's not safe. They don't feel like they can talk to anyone in their lives about like the sex they might be having or the symptoms they might be having, or just like their lives. Like they don't feel like they can really share anything private or personal with anyone. And that's a big problem when it comes to our health, and especially like those things that we've made kind of shameful and secret, like sex and pregnancy. So yeah, I think it's really helpful for people, like if you are someone who is pregnant or can get pregnant, to be surrounded by people who know what that's like and who know kind of, just how it feels or how it might feel for you to have to end a pregnancy or to have to continue a pregnancy and give birth. It's really great to have, like you said, be surrounded kind of by that community that knows what you're going through and what kind of support you might want or need.
Yeah, and women can support each other in a different way than men can with women, and that emotional thing that they can have, and they bond as a community better. I've there are certain things women can talk about, and some of these things too. I mean, the value of a woman is placed on society and her perception, and so different things like abortion or miscarriage or things like that, or like you mentioned, some sexual transmitted disease things. These are things you don't want your neighbors to know about or friends to know about, or maybe the community of your quilting community from 50 years ago. I think they still quilt in the state of Utah, and so having someone like you is someone that they can confide in without having that get out to the community or end up on TikTok.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It's their private business. I'm very into us all minding our own business, but I also want to be that person that like someone can feel safe or not embarrassed to say like, hey, this is going on in my body. And I can say like, oh, that's normal. Like that happens all the time. Like that's, you're not weird. You're not bad. Like it's all right.
That sounds like Fridays for me.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's weird both stuff. Right? Like I don't want people to feel like they have to keep it secret, but obviously it's their business to choose to share or not share, which is a problem with a lot of these laws is like, these judges and these laws are really trying to come into our bedrooms, our hospital rooms, our families, and trying to like get in our most intimate business and criminalize it. And that's a big problem for me.
Yeah, it definitely has exploded with the overturning of Roe versus Wade and other things going on, which is really interesting. How the court's operating in the sense, and we've got this right wing court that's very religious, and so you focus mainly on being an abortion doula. So you're helping people that are going through the abortion decisions and process. Tell us a little bit about how that works and some of the different services you provide that way, I guess.
Yeah. So often someone needs a doula because they don't really have, like they have an abusive boyfriend that they have to keep their abortion a secret from, or, their parents can't know about it, or they have to miss work and like someone has to watch their kids and they don't really have those people in their lives that support them. And so often that's where a doula comes in. And so I'll kind of help someone figure out like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, maybe you don't want to, but what do you feel like you need to do? Like, what medical advice do you need? How can we find you a doctor to like see you, examine you, give you medical advice? And just kind of like, what types of care do you want? Like, do you want me to sit and pray with you? Do you want me to hold your hand while you cry? Or like, do you more just need a ride to the airport so you can go to another state and have your abortion because where you are, you can't have it? Do you need, recently like a local fund had to help a patient raise $15,000 because they didn't have health insurance. They had to fly to another state. They had to get kind of a complicated procedure and then fly home. So like sometimes people need like enormous amounts of money just to have this very simple, very safe type of healthcare done. So often it's logistics, right? People have kids. Most people who have abortions have kids. It's finding, watching their kids, finding childcare, helping them figure out how they're going to miss a day of work or miss a few hours of work, things like that. And so really, I'm just kind of that like net of support that's going to catch someone, no matter why they're falling or where they're falling.
Interesting. How often do you find that abortions are done where the man involved is aware of that's going to happen?
In my experience, that's usually the case. I would say often there's a partner who is either there or they're not there, but they're supportive. It's rare that a partner is not involved in any way. But yeah, it really depends on the situation.
Yeah.
I've been seeing lately a lot of married folks having abortions. So like a husband and wife will come together to the clinic.
I think I saw some stats once that said that sometimes when people just have a full family and it's kind of financial sometimes, but there's a lot of hard decisions. A woman's, women's womb, we protect it. It's women and children first. There's also things we do in society because without women in the womb, we wouldn't propagate as a species. And a lot of everything we do is designed around protecting women and protecting the womb, and making sure that the species continues. Otherwise, we would have probably died out a long time ago. And so, in the book, you titled it "Reflections." Are there stories? Tell us what the reflections are in your book and some of the content.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of a gathering of different folks' stories and expertise. So like I always say there's no such thing as an abortion expert, because the only expert on any given abortion is the person having it or the person who already had it. So for example, my abortion stories in there, I had an abortion after my son was about to turn 1 year old. And so he was a baby. I had a very high risk pregnancy and was very sick. And if I had continued this pregnancy, I would have been in and out of the hospital, very sick, and not really a great mom for a 1 year old. Like I wouldn't have been able to be with him, care for him, love him. And so really for me, my abortion was an act of parenting my son that I already had. And just, it was in pursuit of his thriving and his well-being and his health. So, I tell my story, and then other folks tell their stories of like why they had their abortions, how their abortions went, and then also kind of like who helped them, like who supported them when they needed it, and how it's really, the book is meant to like show folks like, oh yeah, like even though I'm broke and stressed, or like even though I'm not super excited about abortion in general as like an idea, and I'm kind of ambivalent about abortion, when it's my daughter who like is, needs this miscarriage management, which often turns out to be abortion care, or, just has this pregnancy that's in a really bad situation and, is young and can't do this, then I know how to kind of step up and like do what needs to be done. And it's also just like, I interviewed a lot of religious leaders, because I do think that's something that a lot of folks struggle with. And there's some really amazing organizations out there like Catholics for Choice, National Council of Jewish Women, that really help folks. There are like hotlines where you can call and talk to a pastor or a priest, and they can kind of like give you that spiritual guidance and comfort through your abortion. Because, it's only recently that people have kind of seized on this like Christianity or Catholicism as the reason we can't have abortions. And it's not really, the text isn't there if you're really reading the Bible. And like, a lot of religious leaders and clergy are like here to say, hey, okay, let's pray together. Let's talk to God about this. Like God knows why you're here and why you're doing this, and God's okay with you. God loves you. That kind of thing. So that can be really helpful for people. And then just, all the different, like, it's so complicated, right? Like every family situation is so complicated. So just helping folks figure out what they need and kind of tune out all the noise of like the politics and the people screaming at them on the sidewalk and what they learned in Sunday school and all of that.
There you go. And it's interesting to me. There was a stat you gave me in the beginning about people if you could give me those again, stats, people that are religious, like even religious people or people that are anti-choice, I guess, or anti-abortion. You find if they're put in this situation, sometimes they use it.
Oh yeah. And, a lot of folks kind of justify like, well, my situation's different. Well, I need this abortion. Like other people shouldn't have abortions because they feel like it. Or, there's kind of this idea that like, when you're in a tough situation, like you're suffering, but you're like a good, ethical, moral person and it's okay. But when it's someone else, you don't necessarily extend that same grace and you have judgment toward them. And you think like, well, then they shouldn't have had sex. Like, well, then, X, Y, Z. So often it is people who are, I think, would pass judgment on someone else in their same situation, but because they know, I have good intentions, I'm a good family man, and this is my wife, and like whatever it is, they can kind of justify it for themselves. And I totally get that. But it is, I think, like I said, like, I think 25% of US abortion patients are practicing Catholics, right? Wow. They are devout Catholics, and like many, many Christians who are going to church every Sunday and hearing about, how abortion is sin and evil and murder. They're coming to have abortions when they need them, if they can access them. So it really is just something that's like, a birth doula I talk to is like, a birth can turn into a death real quick. Like these lines are blurry. Like people get sick, people get injured, pregnancies die, pregnancies don't work out. Like there's sexual assault, you can get pregnant. We've seen a lot of very young patients who don't know they're pregnant because they have never had a period. They don't know. And they're not receiving sex education to know that they are pregnant. So it's just kind of like we've made it very black and white, and it's really not. It's like humans live really complicated lives, and they should be able to give birth when and if they want to, and when and if it's right for them. And no one should be giving birth against their will, especially in this country where giving birth is dangerous. It's just like, this is a basic thing for me, is I just want everyone to understand that like every abortion is different. And when you say the word abortion, that doesn't just mean one thing. That means 7 billion different things. That means a different thing for every single person who's gone through it.
Yeah, it's because I've had friends that have had all sorts of the baby's in the wrong place, and there's all sorts of medical variations that can take place or situations. It's interesting to me, the religious aspect of it. Do you find because I suppose I should expect it, because do as I say or say as I do is not applicable to religion. I'm an atheist, full disclosure. I think everyone on the show knows that after 14 years. And the amount of people that I've known in religion that say one thing and do it and talk out both sides of the mouth are extraordinary. But I guess if you just repent every week, you're fine. But do people that have the strong anti-abortion issues and get an abortion, do they have, this is kind of a funny joke, do they have, it's an irony, do they have a come to Jesus moment where they go, well, maybe we should be a little bit less lighter on abortions? Or they go back to being anti-abortion after having an abortion? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think there's both for sure. I think it really depends what kind of community they're going back to, right? Like, are they going back to like a household that's more open-minded and more able to change their mind when they're presented with like new information? Or are they going back to a household and a church community that's like, no, we never, like, we're right no matter what, we never change course.
I suppose they can never disclose it either. They can't.
A lot. Yeah. For a lot of folks, they can't even really admit it to themselves. They call it a miscarriage, or they, do all kinds of mental gymnastics, which again, I totally understand, because since they're kids, they've heard like, this is murder. You're a murderer if you do this. So of course they're like, they can't tolerate that, I do think anti-abortion people who don't believe that abortion should be legal are a very small majority in this country. So we got a lot of really powerful, wealthy anti-abortion folks like influencing a lot of decisions and judiciary committees and legislation that's passing. But actual Americans who are just like everyday Americans raising their families, going to work, very, very few of them think that abortion should be totally illegal. And I think the reason why is because most people know that at any minute that could be them or a member of their family or a friend that needs that abortion.
It's interesting to me that you say 25% of Catholics get abortions, or people that are getting abortions, 25% are Catholics. Do I have that? Am I presenting that number right?
I think that's right. Let me look that up. I know that.
I just want to make sure that I said that right in the way that you said it.
Well, let me look it up so I'm not misquoting. But that's a stat that comes from that organization, Catholics for Choice, who are really like they do a lot of research on the Catholic Church and abortion laws. All right, let me take a look.
So what's interesting is that, according to some of the data I pulled up, 61% support, freedom of abortion for people. But I've always wondered about, so that leaves 39%. But then if 25% of the Catholics who are against abortion are getting abortions, you could probably throw in, I don't know, half that figure is full of shit.
So
now you're down to 20%. So now you're just really with oligarch billionaires like Betsy DeVos's organization, Center for National Policy, and I don't know, the Heritage Group, and it's basically we've come to this country, especially with Citizens United, as the battle of oligarch billionaires, and some are on the right, some are on the left, and we're just kind of caught in between. But it's interesting to me, these numbers.
I just pulled it up, and it says many abortion patients report a religious affiliation. So as of 2014, 24% of abortion patients in the US were Catholic, 17% were mainline Protestant, 13% were evangelical Protestant, and then 8% identified with some other religion, and 38% had no religious affiliation. So yeah, it's people in every church, every synagogue, like people on the bus with you, people at your workplace. It's everyone who's having abortions, because it is, again, this very common, very normal thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pregnancy, birth, it's pretty common.
Yeah.
Or attempting a birth. I when I was young, I remember seeing people when I'd have to go to church because my parents forced me. I would see women that had miscarriages, and it's hard. I've had women in our workplace that have miscarriages, and then pregnancies. Let alone pregnancy's hard. I've had pregnant mothers waddling around my office. And sometimes they're in that last stage where they've got to just keep moving, and the baby's kicking hard, and they're just uncomfortable 24/7. It's not comfortable. I'm a fat guy and it's not comfortable, but having a baby inside you and doing all that stuff, that's a whole new level of pain and hormones. So having someone like you who can give them emotional support, who can be there for them and provide something that a lot of us men can't. I mean, we're just lost. And the other thing is too, we don't really know what the experience is like.
Yeah. I mean, and you're raised not to really be curious about it or talk about it too much, for sure.
Yeah. And where someone like you or other women who've gone through the process of it, you guys know what's going on. We're just kind of sit there and we're just kind of lost because we don't have any idea. And so it's great that there.
When a lot of these, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No problem. No, I was wrapping.
I was just gonna say, when you hear a lot of these senators, congressmen, whoever, talking about, a 14-year-old should have to give birth and give their baby up for adoption. It's like, do you know what that would do to a 14-year-old's body to be, carry a pregnancy for 40 weeks and then give birth? It's not human. It's so cruel what these people are proposing.
Yeah. It's interesting. And it's interesting too. I actually said, cause I'm a strategist, so I look at life and social studies and history. And I remember saying to a friend, when it was rumored, it got leaked that the court was going to overturn the thing. And at the time, it was looking like we were just going to have a disaster for Democrats in the House and Senate. And it was going to be just a full wipe because no one was giving a shit to come out to vote. And I said, the only thing that may save the midterms is Roe overturning Wade, or Roe versus Wade being overturned. And sure enough, that was it. I was right. Yeah. I didn't want to be right, but that's the strategic plan of things. I look at the chessboard and go, and so there's a lot that needs to be done in that thing. And it's interesting how people will vote against their own best interests. I think that's the other curiosity I have of human nature and behavior, is voting against their own interests. And like you say, a lot of these people that are religious, they'd end up getting abortions, probably did vote against their own interests and supporting their own freedom. And then, there's an old line from, is it David Miller? No. It's the Miller comedian from the old SNL news show, but he has a line that no one finds Christ on prom night in the back of a car. It's only when you fucked everybody over in the world and no one will talk to you anymore and you're in prison that you find Christ. That's this joke. Dennis Miller. There you go.
Dennis Miller.
Anything more you want to?
Donald Miller, but no.
There you go. I've got it's been so long, but it's one of my favorite bits to reference. No one finds Christ on prom night in the back of the car, and so we get in these mixes, and then we have to reconcile where we're at, and then we, I would hope that more people that would find, hey man, maybe I should let up on other people, but denial's not a river in Egypt. Hannah, anything more you want to share out on the book or tease out on the book so people will pick it up and order it?
Yeah, so I hope people pick it up. It's a paperback, so it's pretty affordable. It's $18.99, $19, $20. And really just keep it on hand, kind of no matter if you feel like, oh, this will never be me, I'll never need this, but maybe there's a neighbor or a high school friend of your daughter or someone who you just feel like, oh, maybe they could use some support or some information or someone to care for them. And again, all these folks who are, pro-life and pro-baby and pro-mother, and that's their reasoning, they're anti-abortion, don't you want then those mothers and children that they have to be safe and healthy and looked after and cared for, kind of, no matter what you feel about their choices? So that's really want to say is just like, come to folks with curiosity and compassion, not judgment, no matter who you are, because you probably don't want to be judged for your choices you've made in life. And, everyone, especially pregnant people, really deserve like our community support.
Yeah.
So that's all I really got to say. Yeah.
We need more family support. I mean, the
1,000%.
The other interesting thing to me about a lot of legislatures around this country in red states is, in my understanding, is red states. Florida is a big abortion state. It's a red state. Georgia, I think Georgia's turned blue technically, but it's on the line. But it's a thing where people don't support the family afterwards.
Right.
like, hey,
right.
do we have some support for the family? If you want
and
these babies.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say a lot of the abortion funds I write about in interview, and like there's the Hoosier Abortion Fund in Indiana. They also have like diaper banks and like formula banks, and they are like helping these babies and these parents, whether or not, they're giving birth or how many kids they have, whatever, in a way that the anti-abortion side is not giving these families any support. So often like the abortion funds and the abortion clinics are the ones who have, they're giving out diapers, they're giving out baby food. So I think that's kind of important to keep in mind, is like reproductive rights means for people who have their kids too.
Yeah. There you go. It's I saw a funny TikTok of a guy who goes out to abortion events, and there was that meme there for a while where all the anti-abortionists were saying, put him up for adoption. We will adopt him, and blah, blah, blah. And so what he was doing was he was going to these abortion protests and sites and stuff, and walking around with an adoption clipboard. And he's like, hey, you guys are here, you're against abortion. Here, let's go ahead and sign you up for adoption. And so you'll adopt these babies. And like, it was just hilarious to see how many people just ran from that. And you're like, wait, do as they say as they do.
Yeah, it's almost like it's not about the babies and taking care of the babies, Chris. It's almost like it's about controlling other people and what they do.
Yeah. Controlling dominance and superiority complex and mob mentality. Stop this crap, humans. I wish we learned human nature or be self-reflective of human nature. Anyway, thank you very much, Hannah, for coming on the show.
Thank you
like
so
I
much.
say, I've seen a lot of women go through a lot of different issues with pregnancy and miscarriage and abortion and other things. And, the emotional stuff they go through is tough, and any support we can give to, keep from emotional damage to happen is good. Give us your .coms one more time, or .me, I think it is, before we go.
HannahMatthews.me is my website. And then you can find me on Twitter, usually yelling about abortion or yelling about, my toddler drawing on the walls or all kinds of stuff. And that's Hannah M Says on Twitter.
There you go. Thank you very much, Hannah, for coming on the show as well.
Thank you so much, Chris. Awesome
there you
to
go.
talk to you.
And I learned what a doula is. I learned something new today, and hopefully our audience as well. There you go.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And thanks to our audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, and we'll see you guys next time. And that should have us out.